Hello world, it's Dave again. Got a video for you now, a new series that's going to deal specifically with why is history so cool. And the gentleman, the period of time I'm going to cover today is our old friend Julius Caesar. And as the title suggests, why is Caesar a rock star? A little bit of a hipster as well. And I want to expand that at the end of this as kind of also the period of time that he's living in as being sort of a rock star era or a time where events and triumphs occurred kind of on rock star proportions, we'll say, huge proportions. So first, when we think back, when I think back about Caesar, I'm guilty of this, always viewing people from the past as being very conservative, because when you think old-fashioned, but you that kind of screws up your perspective because you don't think about how at the time Rome was incredibly modern. In their day, they were modern day. It's only now looking back on them that we consider them to be this dated old civilization. But they're not. They're not. The more I've looked into it, the more I've realized that yeah, Caesar was a leading man for fashion. He set a number of different trends in his lifetime that were picked up by. He belonged to a group or aligned himself with a group that was called the Populares. And the Populares were the people, because you have a republic, and you have a Senate, the Populares were the people within the Senate that most aligned themselves with the will of the people. Now, whether that was for political gain or actually their belief is another question, because you can imagine nowadays that that's a common political tactic, that you would align yourself as a populari, that you would be for the people's cause, but you only do that really because that's very popular. It gets you a lot of votes, and that could matter back then. But as a part of this group, it immediately starts to put him into this rock star persona where, he's a man of the people, he's not uptight. And the first place that we can go to look at why this is the case was his dress. Julius Caesar is the hot fashion trendsetter. And let's go first to clothing in the forum. So when people would debate in the forum, they would often go with like a tight belt. Their belt would be quite tight, a close-fitting robe, and kind of actually how you might imagine. I said earlier that these people are a little more austere, a little more conservative. But when Caesar went in there, as much as he was bald, he was cool, and he turned this on its head. He was the first guy in the forum that he had custom tailored to his robe frilled cuffs. So you can imagine him wandering around with this kind of like, call it Elvis Presley-esque robe with these wicked, Presley and Vegas cuffs on the things, frilled gold. And not only that, but Caesar also had where people would wear their clothes tight and with a tight belt, showing their professionalism. Caesar changed all that, and all he had to do was let the belt down a few rungs. He was famously known in sources, for wearing his belt loosely and his clothes loosely and showing a little bit of skin and almost wanton sort of sexual behavior as he moved around the forum in his debates. Which is just hilarious to me. So there's that, his general dress, and you can see sources say that following him, say usually about 5 or 6 years. This is another thing they discuss in sources, is how trends are usually set that far back, and the leader of trends are usually that couple of years older than the people who start to popularize it, as opposed to being the trendsetter. So yeah, you then get all these kids walking around Rome, and it's the cool thing. It's like, I guess it's kind of like the 90s for us when baggy clothing was in, except it was just for whatever grunge movement in our time. But at this point, it was led by a political leader who started to get way more classy, or not classy, but cool, I should say. And so there you go. There's dress. That's why this guy's so cool, such a badass, not so uptight. But better than this even is to tell a story of our friend Julius Caesar and one of the events of his life. It's just incredible the multitude of things that happened to this guy, just the range of events in his life. It's incredible. So one day, Caesar gets captured by pirates. Tough luck, right? It would be for most people, but not Caesar, not the man brimming with rock star confidence. So he gets caught and he's on the ship with them. And the first thing, of course, is to decide they want a ransom for him. They've captured him not to kill him, although that is a major danger. At any point, these guys could just get pissed off, kill him. That's the sort of serious danger he's in for the time. And they need to decide how much they're going to ransom him for. And they say to him, we're going to ransom you for this much. You think about what kind of responses people might have to this, like, okay, sounds good. Let me write that letter as soon as I can so it can get me back to my countrymen. But no, that's not how Caesar responds. Caesar laughs in their face. Caesar says, what are you talking about? You guys clearly have no idea what you're doing. I'm worth at least double that. And if you knew what you were doing, you would ask for that. And as opposed to chopping off his head, they agree with them. They're like, oh, I guess we made a mistake. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're worth this amount of money. So he goes, damn right. That's not in any source. That's me customizing this. Damn right, I'm worth that amount of money. And so he writes a note back to the Republic for the amount that he has set out, that he says he's worth, not what they dictate, what he dictates. Caesar is in full control. And then sources say that at the time, so he wouldn't grow bored because this guy is a prodigy, he's a genius. That's other details, more to do with his astounding intellect. But what he does is he writes poetry to pass the time while he's in capture. And a lot of people, you'd think they'd keep to themselves during their capture because you don't want to piss off these guys who might kill you. Waiting for, one of them's got a hot head. What's to say they won't just lop it off when you bug them, Not Caesar. He writes poetry in captivity. Not only that, he goes up to the members who have caught him and asks everyone their opinion of the poetry that he's writing. And their response, bunch of gruff pirates, this is kind of predictable, say to him, oh, you're an idiot, this is horrible poetry. And again, I might then, cower tail between my legs, run back to my cabin if I'm being kept on this ship and just keep my mouth shut. Damn it, they don't like my poetry. Not Caesar. Caesar immediately tells them what idiots they are and they don't appreciate good writing. And he is so offended by this, in fact, that he tells them, because of this, when this is all over, he's going to come back and get them. And he's going to have them killed for their horrible lack of appreciation for the fine arts. And they laugh at him. That's what they do. They don't kill him. They laugh at him. And that's, I'd say, for Caesar at the time, I think that's pretty good. I can't believe he even lips off and then threatens them and they still don't kill him. Apparently, Caesar's charisma was just unbelievable, and so he could get away with these kind of things. And so eventually it goes through. They pay the ransom, Rome does, for Caesar, and he was right. They're willing to pay the amount that he demanded and set for himself, and he goes home to Rome and immediately sets out a search party, a hunting party for these guys who had captured him, and is successful. He makes good on his promise to them that he's going to hunt them down for their ignorance and they're not appreciating fine poetry written by a member of the Roman Senate, and captures them, brings them back to Rome, and has them all crucified. But because he's a man of clemency, he's a kind man. For his time, we may think that he is still like a monster with the way in which he kills people, but when you compare it, relatively speaking, to the acts of murder at the time, he's actually a pretty nice guy in comparison. And so when he has them crucified, he does the nice thing, and he has their legs broken. And this is the nice thing because that allows them to put all their weight on their arms, and then because of that, they're going to suffocate much faster, as opposed to apparently the long drawn-out death from crucifixion was far, far worse. And this is something that people often, when they were enduring crucifixion, they would ask someone to kill them or pierce their side with a spear who was walking by. That was better than to wait for the full experience. Again, we might look back, oh, this guy's already crucified, and then you poke him with a spear. That's horrible, but that's just how bad the death was. So there you go. He's a rock star. He dictates his own terms under capture. He's setting fashion trends in the Senate. He's unstoppable. And so a final detail I just want to put into scope the sort of acts of the crazy, show that is going on, the big show that is going on at this time for people in high levels. I want to talk about something called triumphs very briefly. And triumphs are just when you return to the city as a member of the military and you've won some huge military victory, then you get to celebrate a triumph. This is written into their law. And a triumph basically amounts to a parade, a massive parade to celebrate your victory. Now, you might think of this as kind of if you win the championship for basketball, or if you win the Stanley Cup for hockey or whatever, the kind of like the after party that occurs for these sports teams that they go out and do. Um, Maybe a little bigger scale, but there's a detail within this that I think should be included with these after parties for sports teams nowadays. I'll get to that. So when they would go out and they would celebrate this, a character that we can associate this, who eventually becomes of a team of three that Caesar eventually takes over the Roman Senate with. This is one of the guys who's a part of his three-man team. I want to say triumvirate or whatever, but I can't say the word. I'm not good at it. I gotta look it up. He's come back from a major military victory, and he gets to celebrate a triumph, something to show off the glamour of this time. And he, in this event, goes around on a jeweled float with this parade that lasts for 2 days. And I just want to give the scale of the events that are occurring at this time, Rockstar scale. He has on placards during this parade the amount of a couple of figures from his triumph, and they'll blow your mind. So when we think of huge amount of deaths for the modern day atrocities, we'll say. You might say in a war, something in the Second World War, one of the figures that we have as an estimate from that is about 5 million killed and persecuted civilian population, not including bombings, but we're saying the camps that the Nazis had was about 5 million people. When Pompey comes back, one of the first things that he advertises as a part of his victory is that he has killed or enslaved over 12,183,000 people in the course of this military event that he went on. So the scale is just boggling for the modern mind when we think of something like this. 800 ships were destroyed or taken captive, and 1,000 military installations or towns were destroyed, taken over as well. Just to give you a couple of figures, so the scale of the military events, this isn't just a couple thousand people getting together for a fight. This is like numbers that we would consider for a modern day war that the Romans were participating in, which is just incredible. And so Pompey is going along on this huge float as he's proceeding through the parade on this float, and his face is painted red like the god Jupiter, which is, I think, one of the major deity figureheads in Roman culture before they convert to Christianity. And what he has on this float is what amazes me most, and I think should be incorporated into modern day celebration for these huge, super popular sports teams, was a slave. And the slave who would every so often remind him, you are a mortal. Not immortal, you are amortal. To remind him as though he would forget in the grandeur of his celebration that he was in fact capable of dying. And so, when Kobe's on a hot streak or LeBron James is on a hot streak, I think they would benefit for ego purposes after these events, maybe not a slave, a water boy to accompany them out for that night, just to remind them every so often. Remember, James, you are mortal, so don't, do something horrible tonight and stupid. So that's it. Caesar's a rock star, super confident guy, and just consider the scale of events that are occurring at this time. It's pretty exciting stuff. I don't want to say exciting in the context of 12 million people died, but I just mean, wow, what incredible events were occurring at this time. Something I want to do as well, because the reason that I've always loved history, But my source, I would like to cite my source as something that people would probably enjoy because this is something I've really gotten into. Is this guy, if you like podcasts, if you're listening on your Galaxy 4, you got your iPhone, this guy's name is Dan Carlin, and he does this podcast series called Hardcore History. And the one that I'm referring to is called the Follow the Republic. And I'm just getting a little few juicy bits out from it. But if you want the, as opposed to the abridged version, you want the whole thing, it's all free. You can find it on iTunes or you can go directly to his website. I'll put the website and the links down below. And grab it, listen to it. It's incredible stuff. I've only kind of come around to podcasts for history recently. I've usually just read books, but what a great way to enjoy it. What a great medium to get it, you know? If you want to listen at night or something like that before you go to bed. That's often what I've been doing. So yeah, if you enjoy this, this is going to become a part of a multi-part series where I discuss why is history awesome, all the characters, figures, and events therein. Yeah, so if you like this series, please like it, please subscribe to it. I'll be bringing you more awesome details from the much of the history that we have. And the source will be down below, as is my contact if you have any questions. Maybe you want me to research a period of history that you'd like to hear a bit more about, but you just don't want to put in the time to figure it out, and you'd be curious to hear some more about it. Make suggestions like that, please do. And like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Ciao for now.